Welcome back to another Roblox Studio tutorial. In today's video, we're going to continue with our mining simulator by starting to work on collection, so that whenever we break a rock and get a crystal, we can actually collect it. If you're enjoying the series so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, let's go ahead and dive in and get started. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to be creating a folder that we're going to store with the player. And inside that folder, we're going to keep track of how many of each type of crystal they have. So to do that, we're going to start by writing a script in the server script service. Let's go and start with a function that's going to create this folder whenever the player joins the game. So let's say local function. The name of our function is going to be onPlayerJoin. Inside the parentheses, we're going to pass the player. Inside the function, we're going to start by creating the folder, and then we'll create some separate values for each type of crystal. To create the folder, we're going to say local. I'm going to call this folder inventory. And that's going to be equal to instance.new. And then we're going to be creating a folder. After that, I'm going to say inventory.name. And this is going to be equal to inventory inside of quotation marks. After that, we want to store this folder with the player, and we can do that by saying inventory.parent, and we're going to set that equal to the player. Okay, so the next part is just creating the separate values for all the different crystals. And what I did, just to make it a little bit easier, is in the replicated storage, inside the folder we have called crystals, I just renamed them to their colors. So for the pink one, that's called pink, blue is called blue, yellow is called yellow, and so on. And the reason I did that is just going to make it a little bit easier in the script later on. So we're going to be creating a value for each crystal. So let's go ahead and start with the pink one. So we'll say local pink, and this is going to be equal to instance.new. Here I'm going to be creating an int value. And rather than type this over and over again, I'm just going to copy it for each crystal. So we have 6 different crystals, so I'm going to copy this 6 times. Okay, and then I'll just go through and change them. So the next one is going to be blue. After that is going to be yellow. After that is going to be green. After green is going to be red. And then finally we have black. The order of these don't really matter. I was just following the order that they appear inside the folder. Now for each of the values, we're going to set its name. So for the first one, we're going to say pink.name. And this is going to be equal to pink inside of quotation marks. And then for each of these values, we want to store it inside the inventory folder. And we can do that by just saying pink.parent. And we're going to set that equal to inventory. Okay, so you just want to do the same thing for each of the other values. All right, so when you're done, it should look something like this. So for each value, we set the name and also the parent. And the last thing we have to do down here at the bottom is just connect this function to the player added event. And we're going to do that by saying game.players. And then we're going to say .playerAdded. And then we're going to connect this with our function. All right, so let's go and run the game now and make sure this part is working. Okay, so if we check under the player section, and then inside the player, we have a folder called inventory. And if we open up that folder, we have a value for each crystal. All right, so the next thing we're going to work on is our collection script, so that when the player touches the crystal, it collects. For the collection script, we're going to be storing that inside of the server storage, and then whenever we create a new crystal from the rock, we're going to be attaching that script to the crystal. Okay, so inside the script, we're going to start by saying local crystal, and that's going to be equal to script.parent. Okay, after that, we're going to create a function, so we'll say local function. The name of our function is going to be collect. Inside the parentheses, we're going to pass other part. Okay, the first thing we want to do inside this function is get the player who touched the crystal. So we'll say local player, and this is going to be equal to game.players. And then inside players, we're going to say find first child. And then what we're going to be searching for is other part.parent. And then from the parent, we're going to get the name. So other part.parent should be the player's model, and then we're going to take the name of it and find them in players. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to say if player. So if we're able to find that player, then what we're going to do first is get the crystal's name. So we're going to say local And then we're going to say crystal type. And that's going to be equal to crystal.name. After that, we're going to try to locate the crystal stat that's inside of our inventory folder. So we'll say local crystal stat. And this is going to be equal to player.inventory. So that's the folder. And then inside the folder, we're going to say colon, find first child. And then what we're going to be searching for is crystal type. Just to make it easy for the collection part, that's why I matched the part names to the values we created over here. That way we can just grab the name from the part and then search for that in the inventory. Okay, so after we search for the crystal stat, we're going to say if crystal stat. So that'll mean that we found it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to destroy the crystal. So we'll say crystal, and then colon destroy. And then after that, we're going to add to the corresponding crystal stat. So we'll say crystal stat dot value. And that's going to be equal to the original value. So we'll say crystal stat dot value again. And then this time we're going to say plus 1. Okay, so finally down here at the end, we're just going to connect this function to the touch event. So we'll say crystal dot touched. And then we're going to say colon connect. And then we're going to connect this with our function, which is collect. All right, so hopefully this is pretty easy to understand, but let's just go through it really quickly. So whenever a player touches the crystal, it's going to get the name of the crystal, and then it's going to take that name and search for the stat that's stored inside of inventory. And then once it does that, it's going to destroy the crystal. And then for whichever one it matched up to, so like if you touch a green one, it's going to match up to the green stat. It's going to add 1 to that value. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is just open up the rock script and then make a few changes. Okay, so just go and click on one of your rocks and open up the script. And what we're going to be doing under this section right here is after the crystal gets created, we're going to attach our script that we just wrote in the server storage. And I may not have mentioned this yet, but go ahead and rename that to collect. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say local and then collect script. And this is going to be equal to server storage. And before we can use that, we should define the variable up top here. All right, so right below the line for the replicated storage, we're going to make one for the server storage. Since it's pretty similar, I'm just going to copy this one. So we're going to change this to server storage. And then we're also going to change it over here too. All right, so now we can use it down here. So we're going to say server storage, and then we're going to say colon, find first child. We're going to be looking for our collect script. And then after that, we're going to make a copy of it. So we're going to say colon and clone. And then after we make a copy of it, we just want to attach it to the crystal. So we're going to say collect script dot parent. And we're going to set that equal to random crystal. All right, so now you have two options. You can either copy and paste these two lines to the other rocks if you have them, or what you can do that might be a little bit easier is just write it for one rock and then duplicate that rock. If you notice when you test it out that it's not working with some of the other rocks, just make sure that those two lines got inserted into the script. All right, so let's go ahead and test everything out and make sure it's working. Okay, so I'm going to start by opening up our inventory folder. And inside the folder, we have all the different values. So let's go ahead and mine some of the rocks. Okay, so that one's a green one. So if you open up the green value, it should change right here in this section here. So if my player goes up to touch it, it goes from 0 to 1. Okay, so now it's pink. So if we take a look at the pink value. Okay, so that one worked correctly. Okay, another pink one. Okay, and we can see that this one doesn't work. So I'm going to mine the fourth one, and then we'll take a look at the third rock and see what happened. Okay, so that one we got a yellow one, so we'll take a look at that. And it looks like that's working. So let's go ahead and take a look at the third rock and see what went wrong. Okay, so if we open up the script for this one, we can see down here for this section, it doesn't have those two lines. If you notice it got skipped for one of the rocks, just go back to one that you wrote it for, copy it, and then paste it. Okay, so where we left off at this point, it's pretty open as far as how you want to display the actual values, whether that be on a GUI or maybe some leader stats. So it seemed like the GUI was the more popular option, so that's probably what we're going to go with. So go ahead and let me know what you want the GUI to look like in the comment section, whether you want it to be a side menu, maybe something over here, whether you want it to be a small pop-up menu, or something that takes up more of the screen. Alright, so that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next one.